Hey, how you guys doing? Zuko here, and welcome to the Preorder Roundup for January and February, where we're going to be talking about the newest anime figures that you may or may not want to add to your collection. Now, obviously, this video is very late. Unfortunately, just didn't have the time to make this in between all those OneFest videos, but we're here now, and we got a lot to talk about. I think I have about 80 or so tabs open on Chrome. This time around, I wrote down a bunch of notes, so hopefully that should speed up the process a little bit. Though I do expect this video to be fairly long in the end anyway, so either way, I hope you enjoy it, and I think we should just get started. So I think I want to start off this video by mentioning a couple of figures that we previously just discussed in the One Fest and One Hobby videos, such as the Neptune Summer Vacation figure from Broccoli. As you might recall, I love this one. Her face and outfit are super cute, the details on the sunflower are great, and it does a great job evoking those warm, lazy summer day vibes. She costs 23,000 yen, which is kind of a lot, but at the same time the flower is sorta big, so I kinda get the justification. It's definitely very cute though. Yui from My Teen Romantic Comedy Snafu is also 23,000 yen, which makes Neptune look like a bargain. This is made by Amakuni and is an Ami Ami exclusive, so you're not really gonna find a good deal here. But yeah, I just don't really get it. Like, you can trust Ami Ami to deliver when it comes to like the quality, and she looks great so far, but there's simply no way that this figure of Yui in her school uniform should cost this much. We got two floral dress figures of Itsuki and Yotsuba Nakano from the Quintessential Quintuplets, both by Eastream, and both costing around 30,000 yen, which is about what you should expect from the company. Now, strangely enough, I'm just not the biggest fan of this Itsuki figure, but don't get me wrong, I think the sculpt is solid and her face is really cute, but there's just so much red on this figure, and this is coming from a guy whose favorite color is red. All the details of her dress and the flowers just kind of blend together, and her hair isn't helping. It's all a bit monotonous, even with the various shades of red and pink from the flowers. Yotsuba, on the other hand, I think was executed far better. Because her primary color is green yet her hair is orange, you get a really good contrast like right off the bat. But on top of that, the white flowers are mixed in with bright green clovers. The pearls around her waist stand out a bit more because they have some movement to them. And hell, even the pattern on her dress is just a far stronger detail than the glitter that was on Itsuki's. Frankly, because of how energetic she looks too, this figure just feels a bit more lively as well. Rei Ayanami Red Rouge. This is a figure that only costs 17,500 yen, which is kind of a steal for a 1/7 scale these days. And the outfit Rei's wearing looks great on her. Unfortunately, the more I've looked at this figure, the less I like the lipstick. It's just far too heavily applied here, which might be your thing, but when I compare it to the original illustration, I just don't understand why they went so hard. Other than that though, I think it's pretty good, but that definitely makes me not like the figure as much. Phat Company's Twin Turbo, the crazy looking horse girl from Uma Musume, ended up costing 26,800 yen, which is a damn shame, as I think her design is fantastic, and I'll keep saying that because I really like the look of this figure. Spiral eyes, shark teeth, the unnaturally blue hair, the funny ass rocket shoes, and a lively base. There's a lot to like about this figure. Even her leggings have a uniqueness to them, and her confident pose really completes the look. But why do all these horse girls have to come at a premium? Like, if this wasn't Phat Company, maybe I would take a chance on this one, but I'm just gonna wait and see how she turns out before ordering her, because I just don't really trust them. Though this is the first time I'm also seeing her hood, and that shit's cute. So there's another reason why I like this. But yeah, really expensive, and it's Phat Company, who's been kind of failing us recently, so I'm not really sure on this one. BB Chill bunny version from Solar Rain. She did not have a dress the last time we saw her. It's extremely simple in execution, but it can apparently be removed anyway, so that's fine. Honestly though, I think I sort of like it just because she's got that clear plastic bottle in her hand too, so it kind of goes along with her theming. Her face definitely steals the show though, it's just as enamoring as last time, and yeah, her hips are also kind of insane. This one costs about 22,000 yen before any discounts. Chisato has gotta be one of the cheapest 1/7 scale figures from Good Smile Company I've seen in a really long time. probably since the pandemic started, honestly. 15,800 yen is kind of remarkable. The quality so far is looking up to par too. The paint of the prototype is like just as pleasing to the eyes as any of their other sculpts, and it's got just enough energy behind her pose to bring her to life. If you're looking for a figure of Chisato in this outfit, I don't really know how you do any better than this. Karin from Blue Archive. As good as this figure looks, the price tag is a tough pill to swallow at 29,800 yen. Max Factory isn't really known for their affordable figures these days, but I think they're pushing it a bit here. Granted, there's a lot of hair that they have to sculpt, and the paintwork throughout her hair is like A+, and the base is certainly finely crafted and a step above the average scale, but I think they're taking slight advantage of how popular Karin is here. Rem and Childhood Rem. I just had to bring this one back up. Now, from the looks of it, this figure is not as popular as I would have expected. Part of that is likely due to Rem burnout for sure, but the concept alone I thought would have carried this figure a little bit more. I will say there isn't anything spectacular about the paint job here. It's a run-of-the-mill Rem in that regard, but you can't tell me this ain't cute. It's really cute. At 22,000 yen for 1.5 characters, the price is pretty good too. Now, looking this figure over again, I guess the best shading is actually applied to the childhood version of Rem. There's some light blue on her kimono, which looks pretty nice, and the bow on her back looks quite good for its simplicity. Also, her triangle mouth is really cute. But yeah, I suppose this isn't a must-get or anything, but I still like it. Mirako from Belfine. I didn't think this would cost only 18,000 yen. That's kinda nuts to me. Now, unless I just don't know the actual quality of these figures, that seems like a pretty good deal. It certainly feels more like Mirako than some other figures I've seen of her. The legs are the focus, which is pretty much all I feel like you have to do with her, and yet some figures don't do that. And I really like the face on this one. It's fairly expressive, and I think they've matched the art style pretty well. Some nice definition in her thighs right there too. I feel like this one's promising. Uten Keko by Astrum Design. So to me, this is 90% really good, with the only part of this figure I don't like being the base. Now, I can live with the flat white disc, I don't really care about that, but the acrylic stands make her look cheap to me, and I hope that they can be removed personally. Otherwise, her outfit is killer, and the color scheme is superb. Upskirt aside, I really like how tight they managed to make the skirt look, and the gold belt with the chain looks awesome. Also, this is making me realize how we definitely need more anime figures with realistic sneakers. We are starting to get that with the Radio Eva Part 2 line, and the Asuka figure that just came out apparently did live up to the hype. I did receive it, but I've yet to unbox it, so I guess that's a spoiler for a future video. But yeah, they look fantastic on this figure, and I think there's a lot of potential behind the design, so I hope we see more of that in the future. Juliana by Charm. You know, I don't know where this figure came from. I have never seen it in my life, but this is cute as fuck. And I mean, obviously, it's meant more as a sexy figure as she drenches herself in water, but that face and those ears, they kind of make the heart flutter a little bit. Now, anyway, there's something very natural about the color scheme on this one, which is fitting for an elf girl likely bathing in the forest. I'm kind of surprised at how good the drenched dress looks here, and the water itself is fairly convincing. The shades of gold for all her bangles and bands also just look premium, and her hair sculpt is lovely too. I did want to make a quick comment about her chest being really well sculpted, but then I realized that the photos in this gallery aren't even censored, which is really rare. So this is also a cast off if you didn't know. So I'm just gonna say they're good. But yeah, this is a 1/6 scale for 23,000 yen and a cast off. That's pretty hard to beat. Plus it's really cute. I kind of like this one a lot. Here we have an Albedo 1/7 scale by I Delight Figure. It's a bit expensive at 28,600 yen, but the price isn't really an issue for me here because we've got a really vibrant kimono with nice patterns throughout it. Her wings are really well detailed, and her hair has this long, luscious flow to it that once again seems to have some great shading throughout. This is kind of silly though. I don't think she needed a butt window on her back. Overall though, I just really like the colors of her kimono, and she really stands out as a result. Our Ryza figure for the month is the Ami Ami 25th anniversary version, which is apparently sold out at this point. I'm kinda surprised by that, but I'm sure there'll be more in the future. But yeah, so this is the one that essentially tries to bring the world of Atelier to your shelves with these magical portal doors throwing various items from the games at you. I think it's a lovely concept. It's just kind of fun when a figure gives you a lot to look at and appreciate. As for Ryza, I feel like the best way I can describe her is bouncy, and I feel like you probably know what I mean by that, but of course she's got the thick thighs I'm sure you're craving too. There's also a version of her without the doors if you want that, but while I appreciate a cheaper option, I feel like this is the kind of figure where you gotta go big or just go home. I don't know. Belfast by Emon Toys would be so much nicer if she was just smiling. I know she's got a pretty smile, I've seen figures of her smiling in the past, but this blank expression is such a disservice to the otherwise good-made figure. The outfit's billowing is nice, the shading on the blue portion is clean, the hair has a pretty flow to it, and even the teacups and kettle have a nice shine to them on top of the bolder blue chosen for their paint. The price tag is certainly great though, so if the face doesn't bother you, this might be one to look out for. Gaora Girl 1/7 scale by Design Coco. Nearly 25,000 yen is a lot of money for this in my opinion, though you can get her for around 22,500 yen on Hobby Link Japan last time I checked, so be sure to use my affiliate link down below to save some money and help me out. But anyway, I think objectively this is nearly perfect. However, personally, I would have preferred to see her with a different expression. The one she has is fitting, don't get me wrong, but I think it's a missed opportunity to not have the shark character show off her shark teeth. At the very least, her eyes, or eye, I guess, looks stellar though. Besides that, the shading throughout her hoodie is top notch, and I really like how the drool is a separate piece of plastic instead of being painted on. The trident looks sick, and Bloop is also very cute in his little bubble. But I do feel like there's a bit of a style clash with the base itself. The shell looks a bit too realistic to me for an anime character to be standing on, and there's something about the waves that feel like they belong to a different figure. I would still say that I really like this one. I'd give it like a 9 out of 10 based on the prototype alone, so I'm really not trying to steer you away from this one. I like it quite a bit, but yeah, that's just a few things I've noticed that kind of bother me very slightly. Cardcaptor Sakura Battle Costume Water version by eStream. So I really wanted to like this one. I was following it along with a friend while it was unpainted, but now that it is, I'm kind of disappointed. It's just so blue in a really flat way. The one thing I like about this figure is her hair sculpt. I'm always impressed when they sculpt all the individual strands of hair on shorter hair characters, but the paint job just leaves a lot to be desired. For 35,000 yen, my first impression shouldn't have just been like, oh, it's done. I should have been blown away by this one. Now the Jester outfit is super cute on Sakura, but like, why does it lack any detail whatsoever? And the base is just so strange looking. This kind of reminds me of like a Figuarts Zero figure, which usually has a pretty involved base on top of a dynamic pose for a pretty affordable price, but lacks those finer details that most people who buy scales are typically looking for. So basically this figure is kind of cool to look at first, but ultimately is a letdown considering that eStream usually goes harder than this. I think Wave deserves a round of applause for giving us Komi's silly expression as a faceplate on this figure. You expect it with Nendoroids, but scales rarely get to show off the goofier side of characters. So I love this one just for that alone, but outside of the slightly high price tag I guess, is it just me or is her hair kind of the wrong color? The shape of it is great, they captured the art style really well on this figure, but shouldn't her hair have like a purple hue to it? I can't really tell if that's what they're going for with the translucent bits, which I just don't like naturally anyway, but even the top of her head feels like it should be a different color. I still overall like this one, but I'm wondering if you guys see what I'm seeing or if I'm just flat out wrong here. Lemon 10 by Design Coco. So this one actually has a life-size version of it, and I actually prefer the colors on that one to this figure right here. It's mainly her eyes and her hair. On the 1/7 scale, things have gotten a bit desaturated, I guess, which I don't really love, but overall the design of this figure is really cute. I think Lum looks lovely here. The shading on her skin is amazing, and the little heart that she's summoning with the lightning bolts is adorable. That's gotta be my favorite part on this figure easily. Her hair from the front also looks fantastic, though from the back it does look a little bit blobby, though I don't really find that to be a big deal. Her thighs look really good from this photo as well, so that's a plus too. Funny enough, I remember dropping the original show back in the day just because I really didn't like 10. Just thought he was annoying, but since he's not talking here, I think it actually adds a little bit to the figure. He's pretty cute, and his hair is so vibrant. It's so much brighter than like every other color on this figure. It's kind of interesting, actually. I don't know why they did that, but I do like the color, and I do think overall this one is pretty cute. One more thing I want to mention though, as cute as the base might be, like, I don't know if I'm just crazy, but once again, I feel like it's a bit of a mismatch in terms of the art style. When I look at this base, I'm reminded of like Sanrio characters like My Melody or Cinema Roll or the Little Angels. I just feel like they would fit this base so much better than this Lum figure. Like, I feel like this base is too cute for this Lum. If you're a Lum fan though, you do have some options this month, as there was also the Kotobukiya Lum to talk about, which I actually kind of like more. Now, there's something about the more cartoony approach to her hair colors, like how each part is clearly separated compared to the blending of colors from Design Coco's, that I just kind of like more here. That on top of the yellow highlights, I just think it's a better look. Her eyes are a bit brighter too, which I personally just find really important on figures. This retro base with the neon hearts and the electricity bolts is also just so fun to look at, so yeah, I think if I had to pick one up, I'd go with Kotobukiya's. Here's a couple of overpriced Furyu figures if you're interested. We've got Tanya on a chair looking a bit constipated for 33,000 yen. We've got Miku's Chinese New Year figure that I was told makes her look a little bit like a grandma, and now that kind of ruined the entire thing for me, so thanks for that. A really expensive Hestia figure in a Shiramoku for 43,000 yen. Truthfully, I kind of like the design of her Shiramoku compared to others I've seen, and incorporating her colors into the design of it is actually turning out great. But the price tag is just way too much for me to deal with. And then we have the Rem Hyaki Yoko version, which yes, is just another Rem, but I sort of like it. It's Rem, but she's drunk. Her face is really cute on this one. And all the gourds remind me of Shuten Doji, so I'm very biased here. Oh man, this has got to be one of my biggest disappointments in a while. I remember seeing this one on Twitter and thinking, wow, that's really pretty. Simple, but her face is lovely. And then the price tag was revealed, and I was just not having it. I was out of there. Honestly though, that's not even the worst part. Don't get me wrong, 27,500 yen for such a simple dress is offensive as hell. But that's not even the worst part. So they also made Momo and Mikan versions of these figures as well, and just to get the point across, I'm going to use the Momo figure as it's the most problematic, I suppose. Now, take a look at her chest right here, her wrists rather. Do you see a problem? Do you see it? Maybe this photo helps a little bit, and if not, I'll grab some other photos, and we'll all take a gander at it. They literally cut holes in her body so that her wrists would fit inside of her chest. Like, what kind of amateur hour shit is this? Now, that's fine if the figure's cheap, but are we not past this already? Have we not figured out how to put arms on top of a chest slightly pushing down so that it looks natural on a 27,000 yen figure? I just don't get it, and luckily for Mikan, she actually does not have to have this issue. I still don't think these figures are worth buying even if they didn't have those problems, because they're so simple for the price tags. Even with them being 1/6 scale, there's just really not a lot to offer. And it really does upset me because I like this figure as like a sculpt so far. Her face is lovely, and I like the fact that she has taiyaki with her as her, favorite snack and whatnot. But you could see it here too. Her arms are literally just like slotted into the dress, and it looks pretty bad. If that's what the prototype looks like, I really don't want to know what the finished product looks like. But if this bargain bin for like 10,000 yen, I'd pick it up. Absolutely. Just not for 27,000 yen. That is crazy. Toru and Kana got made figures from Union Creative for Dragon Maid. Points for Toru for having her tail. It looks pretty massive too, but otherwise these are pretty standard figures for slightly inflated price tags. I do think that the Apex figures are the better ones overall, and you'll save a lot of money if they're still in stock. I'm not actually sure, but these are fine. Altina Orion from Q's Q. I just really like the futuristic bunny getup that she's wearing. There's just a lot of design elements to this figure that helps the simplicity of the sculpt stand out a bit more. Arc Knights Amiya, the Song of Long Voyage version by Apex. I believe this is the third or so figure in this specific line. It's elegant, it's cute, it's very affordable. What's not to like? I think this figure is very pretty. Usaka Beniko 1/6 scale by Test, a marvel when it comes to her tummy sculpt. That's pretty good. That's real good. Also, she's fairly thick all around too. Very curvaceous character design. They really wanted to show off her body on this figure, and I think they're doing a pretty good job. Colors on this figure are also fantastic though. I really like the purple and like violet mix of her hair. I think that's really well done. And her eyes, I think I need a better picture of it, are really pretty. I think they did a great job with her eyes too. The jacket itself has a lot of like fun little pins to appreciate, which I like. And the gold lining on the inside looks pretty stellar too. Her shoes are kind of silly looking, but that's fine. You're probably not looking at them anyway from the back of this figure. If this cheerful, energetic bunny girl was even remotely affordable, I might think about it, but at 29,000 yen, I feel like that's a little bit too much for me to be spending on like an OC character. Panda-chan by Union Creative has a cute design, but her face starts to look a little bit strange when you look at it at other angles. Maybe that's just me, but I really feel like something starts to get a little odd when you change your viewing angle even slightly. She's got a tail, which is sort of interesting since she doesn't have ears, but this viewing angle also lets you see how thin the dress is supposed to be. If you get what I'm saying, that's pretty nice. It's a pretty good character design overall though, but I think the pandas definitely elevate it a little bit, like the hair clips, the shoes, and the plushie that she's hugging. Definitely makes this one a bit more charming, and it's not really that expensive either, so considering it's Union Creative, I think this could have definitely turned out worse, but it seems pretty good so far. Shokaku from Mimeyoi is a 1/4 scale that shares a lot of similarities with Zuikaku, who went up for pre-order a couple months back. While they definitely share a lot of similarities in terms of like sex appeal and whatnot, and the outfit and all that, for me, Shoikaku looks a little bit better, if only due to the fact of her like silver hair and blue eyes combo. I just think she looks a little bit prettier in that regard, but as the smarter person might say, why not both? Azur Lane's Baltimore Finish Line Flag Bearer is an absolute standout for the month. For 20,000 yen, I think Apex is offering quite the figure, a sexy rendition of Baltimore in a stunning race queen costume with a sleek, shiny finish to boot. If the outfit's design or like the definition of her body isn't enough, you're also getting like a huge flowing flag, and there's like tires on this figure, that little bird who I always forget the name of unfortunately, and even like a piece of the racetrack. While it's not the cheapest figure we talked about today, it's absolutely one of the best bangs for your buck you can get right now. How is this already sold out already? I feel like this just went up not that long ago, so that's kind of weird, but anyway, this is Scotty, the Corrupting Heart Elite 2 version, easily one of the most impressive sculpts in this video today. Now you can actually just buy Scotty herself if you want, and I wouldn't really even blame you for doing that because I think Scotty is pretty beautiful in her sculpt. I love the red outfit that she's wearing. I think like all the creases throughout it are really pretty. The silver boots look great, the straps around her leg, and even her hair. Her hair looks so freaking good. I love the design of it, and the color really, works along with the red of her outfit. But like this massive seaborn creature that's behind her is really why people are looking at this figure. Strangely enough, it only adds about like 20,000 yen to the price tag, and I know that's a lot of money, but when you look at this thing, it's like twice her size and it's highly detailed, so I'm kind of just surprised that it's not more than that. But this is Mythos, even though they have raised their prices recently, I feel like this is really justified. I just think it's a really good value, ignoring the shipping costs, which are probably going to be astronomically high, but that's an issue for another day. I don't really know a lot about this creature, so I apologize for my lack of knowledge, but this serpent-like beast is absolutely sick. It's got the spectacle most people are looking for in sculpts thanks to its like size and grotesqueness. I like how it's holding onto her weapon case with its tentacles, so I guess this thing just has tentacles too. Oh, and apparently, I saw an image of this earlier, it like lights up in some way, so that's definitely neat. So yeah, this one's phenomenal, it's very expensive, but like I said earlier, I think it's pretty justified. Okay, here we have Dai Kashoku Jidai Di-chan, or D-chan, not sure. Look, this might be around the same price as the Yui figure from Amakuni, and technically, she's wearing even less. But the sexy brown elf in hot pants and latex with lacy leggings is a much more compelling thesis statement compared to Schoolgirl. She's also a cast-off, and I think that's where Amakuni shines the most when they're, working with one hand and whatnot. But seriously, like a 1/6 scale curvy elf with a great art style on top of all that is a clear winner if you ask me. It's kind of fun that I just start to randomly remember and learn these characters from games and series I don't play just because they keep appearing in these videos. Like, Suomi is that swimsuit figure I liked a lot at One Hobby, and here she is once again in an adorable Christmas-style outfit. Now, this might not be my best take I've ever had, but I kind of wish this was just like a clumsy girl figure rather than a battle-damaged one. I like that she's falling over these presents and you can see her bloomers and stuff, but all these scuffs and scratches all over her body, they're not really doing anything for me here. And I just want to make it clear that this is very much a subjective thing. I don't think this is a problem with the figure. I just would have preferred this to be more cutesy and clean, but I get it. It's the Girls Frontline thing. They kind of do this with all of their figures, but I would just prefer it one way specifically, and that's fine. I'm just stating an opinion, and you don't have to agree with me at all on this one. Chainsaw Man's Power figure by Amakuni. I can't believe I haven't gotten a chance to talk about this one yet. Now, if you ask me, I think this is the best power figure on the market currently. However, your eyes do not deceive you. That price tag is indeed 27,500 yen. Is this overpriced? Absolutely, no question about it. But it just seems like a lot of Chainsaw Man figures are going down this route, which is just an unfortunate case of the IP being expensive, or they're taking advantage of us, and you kind of just have to deal with it, I guess. It sucks, but what can you do? Now, the reason I like this figure so much is simply due to the portrayal of this character. The expression they sculpted for her is beyond perfect. It really is unrivaled when it comes to other power figures out right now, and while I'm not going to pretend her clothes are insanely detailed or anything, they do look nice. Both have a slightly soft look to them, and the creasing of the shorts is pretty well done. I absolutely love the fact that they gave her demonic fingernails, considering she's like the Blood Fiend or a devil or whatever you want to call her. I just think it's a great touch. Also, there's something slightly attractive about this rendition of Power, which is weird because I don't normally think of Power that way, but it's the arrogance on top of how much of her legs are on display, I guess. Amakuni just has that special touch, I suppose. Before I wrap up here though, I gotta quickly mention her hammer. It's most likely increasing the price of this figure by 50 bucks on its own easily, but I'm just shocked at how good they managed to make this hammer look, from the various shades of red and black and all the cracks throughout it, and even the concrete base just being smashed in and bloody looks excellent. So yeah, I basically like every single thing about this figure, but the price sucks, so I'm buying it, but I won't be very happy when the bill comes. If you want a power figure that's much, much cheaper, then Kotobuki has got you covered for only 15,500 yen. And you know what? This is honestly pretty great for the price. It's dynamic, it's colored well, the base is fitting, even if it's just their Chainsaw Man template base, and it also has the distinction of being in her work clothes, which you might prefer over some of her other figures. The face is really solid too, and even if I don't like it as much as Amakuni's version, I don't like any of the other power figures' faces as much as the Amakuni version, so that's not a big deal anyway. Aki from Eastream also went up for pre-order this month. It's super expensive thanks to the Fox Devil base, but what a godly base it is, I don't even think they could really improve it. I think it's that good. It's just a shame that I really don't like Aki's face on this figure, but since I spent a solid chunk of time talking about him in the last video, I won't do the same here. Likewise, Eastream's Makima is also available now, and it is absolutely the best Makima to date. I wouldn't even say I like Makima that much, but every single time I look at this page, I want this figure a little bit more. Really great execution on her face, her personality, the blood. Man, the blood on this figure looks insanely good. This figure really is just a screen cap from the series, and that is some of the best praise I can give it, honestly. Again, I talked about her a lot more in the previous video, so check that out if you haven't, but I'm gonna move on. I'm unsure if I ever talked about Kotobuki as Makima, but to keep it brief, I really just don't vibe with this one. Whether it's her face or her pose, it just feels off to me, and it was at this point I was starting to worry that Makima figures would always just be difficult to pull off, especially because of the Furyu version, but I'm glad Eastream proved me wrong. I mean, that price tag is insanely cheap, so it's not all that bad, and Kotobukiya is solid in terms of their quality, so they're not really going to let you down in that regard, but yeah, this is just not one of my favorites from them, unfortunately. Alright, perfect opportunity to finally start talking about Freeing's figures for the past 2 months. I like to clump them all together, as you might have noticed in the past videos, but yeah, they're making Power and Makima into Bunny Girl figures, and I'm sure most of you are very aware of that at this point. I can't imagine these not doing well. I'm sure a lot of people watching this video have already pre-ordered them. My opinion is that they're pretty good. In fact, I think Powers, I would give it a great. I think they did a phenomenal job with her. They chose the perfect color. Her pose is nice. Even though it feels like she should be holding onto something, like a scythe, it still works. It's still in character. And frankly, if this is already going to cost like 40,000 yen on its own, I don't really want to know how much it would cost with a single weapon attached to her. So we're not going to worry about that. Yeah. Nice butt, I guess. Again, I don't really think of Power that way most of the time, and even on this figure, I don't really care about the sexuality of it. I just think they did a good job with the hair, and her face and the body looks good, so yeah, they did a really good job with Power. Makima, on the other hand, I think is solid. I'm not really as impressed with this one. I've seen some people say that they wish she had her trench coat, which would have been really pretty, but that would have absolutely made this cost like 60,000 yen, and I know for a fact a lot of you guys would be complaining about that, so let's not go down that route. But for what this is, a simplistic bunny with the ties that they wear from their, work uniform, I think it's enough. I like that her hair is, put over her shoulder. I think that's pretty cute. The pose is nice. The face is solid. There's just nothing really like pushing it over the edge, which is kind of difficult when they have to keep these affordable. I'll put the quotes here because this isn't really affordable. This is a fairly simple bunny, but it's like 38,000 yen instead of Power's 39,000 yen. So like, I don't know. It's the Chainsaw Man tax. It's unfortunate. I'm pretty sure these are limited too. So you're going to have to spend a pretty penny on them as well. You're not going to get a discount on them. I'm not really the person you should come to for bunny opinions, as I don't really collect them. I'm just looking at them at a surface level, and I think they look enough like the characters, and their body proportions are, convincing enough to make me think of the original characters' proportions, and that's all I really need, I guess, to at least give them a thumbs up. Mashiro Shizuyama swimsuit version. So the one thing of note I really want to point out here is the price tag being just under 30,000 yen. I just assumed they would overcharge for this one, so I kind of want to like own up to that and say, hey, it's actually not that expensive, and as a result, I think it's alright. I also did not know that she had cute little black wings on her back, so there's a bit more detail to this figure than I initially thought. So yeah, really not that bad at all. I do think there are some like weld issues, like especially on the leg here. I still think that looks pretty bad. They should probably touch that up a little bit if possible, but other than that, it's pretty cute. Ichigo from Darling is getting a bunny figure. Pretty standard stuff, costs 33,000 yen. Pose is a little funny. I'm not the biggest fan of it. In fact, I'm not really the biggest fan of her expression either, but I do like her bunny ears. They're a little bit poofier than your average bunny girl from Freeing, but that's really the only thing I kind of like about this one, unfortunately. Hisako from Food Wars, along with Raftalia from Shield Hero, are both getting bare leg bunny versions. Tengen Izui from Demon Slayer costs 77,000 yen, which is going to keep a lot of people away from this one. I actually don't hate the sculpt of this, but I absolutely do not see the reasoning for their pricing. I'm sure he's going to be a bit taller than most bunny girls, and I do like the wrappings around his blades. I think that is a pretty nice detail, all things considered. Oh, and he also comes with an extra faceplate, which is nice, but this effect piece is so bleh. It looks like sewage water. It is such a bad color, and it's not even really impressive either. It doesn't really even reach up to his chest. It's like below his waist, so it's not even really that impactful, but they're sure asking a lot of money for this one for what I think is fairly basic, all things considered. It's just big. It's just a big figure of the guy, and I don't think it's worth that much money, but feel free to disagree, I guess. Miruko is getting the 1/4 scale treatment from Freeing, and just like the Belfine version, I like that her legs are on full display here. She looks pretty strong, there's some nice muscle definition, and honestly the effect piece is not really that big or involved, which is maybe disappointing, but this figure only costs about 44,000 yen, So at the very least, it's on the lower side of things as far as these like non-bunny girl figures from Freeing goes, so that's definitely a plus in my opinion. But yeah, it's solid stuff, I like it. Non-original Anubis bunny version. So this is a collaboration between the cosplayer Non and the illustrator Azusa, and as you could tell, it's very different from your traditional bunny girl figure from Freeing. Now I think this one's gonna be a bit hit or miss just because of like the completely different art style of this figure being a bit more realistic and whatnot. But what I will say is that the realism in her suit this time around, compared to like all the other Freeing figures we typically get, is so much better, and I prefer this way more than like the plastic shell that we typically get. It just has so many creases throughout the suit, and it looks so much better as a result. And I love the headpiece and the ears on this figure. Honestly, as far as the sculpt goes, one of Freeing's better figures, at least the way I see it. This is technically very good. Komi got a bunny figure, and I kind of forgot about this one, but you know what? I think it's actually better than Wave's version. While it doesn't come with a goofy faceplate, which is kind of a bummer, I do think her face looks a bit prettier here. And her hair is actually purple, which was what I was complaining about, so this figure basically solves my one issue. I think they nailed the art style, and I like the pose. I like how she's covering herself up. I think it's pretty adorable. Maybe she should be blushing a little bit more, if at all. I'm not really sure if there's any blush on her face, really, but I don't mind it. I think it looks good. In fact, I think it looks great. Ai Hayasaka bunny version from Kaguya-sama. I am not really the biggest fan of this one. She's just a little bit too sad. I'm not a big fan of her expression. And her head looks a little bit big, maybe. I mean, that's a minor complaint. It really is just the expression that I'm not personally fond of, so if you like this expression, then there's no issue with this figure. Ryomo Shime and Kano Uncho are getting bunny girl figures from Iki Tosen. These are their second figures. Not that this is a revision. I'm pretty sure their older versions are very old and different, so we're just getting something a bit more modernized for the characters. I do like how both of them are squatting, which I'll get to the other one in a second. Ryomo here is literally grabbing her butt, which I find to be pretty appealing. But yeah, there is Kanu. I might as well go to her page right now. Pretty similar pose, pretty similar squats. This one's got her arms up in the air. A little bit of armpit fan service for you. Her hair is draping all over her arms, which is pretty nice. And yeah, pretty good overall. They cost 41,800 yen each, so pretty expensive. Not too much more expensive than most of the other bunnies at least. But yeah, some good stuff. And finally for Freeing, we have two pretty interesting figures of Mikey and Ken from Tokyo Revengers. Now these are the statue and ring style figures. Here is Mikey, here is Ken. I think both of their sculpts are really nice. These are actually 1/8 scales, which is pretty uncommon for this company, but this is still going to cost you a bit of money because, as you could tell by the name of the figure, you're going to be getting a ring, and there's no way to not buy the ring, so I hope you want a ring. Now, there's nothing wrong with the ring. It's a pretty ring, but I just think they shouldn't force this on you if you don't want it. That's really my only issue. Because otherwise, I think the sculpts of the characters are great. They're really nice representations of the characters. They're nothing too, dynamic or interesting, but like, not everything needs to be, and so far, these are some of the better, more like simplistic figures of these characters I've seen in a bit. But, you're gonna have to get some rings if you want to get either of these two figures, and that might just not be something that you want. It's a bit weird to me, but like, I'm clearly not the demographic for this, so some people out there might be watching this and think this is awesome, and that's great, but I just feel like you shouldn't only be able to get these figures with the rings, because they're 1/8 scales for like 33,000 yen, and that's a lot of money for a 1/8 scale, a very simple 1/8 scale. Even if they look good and on model and whatnot, it's just kind of a weird business practice, at least to me. Benny Enma from Amakuni, super cute. Big fan of Takahito Harada and their work on Disgaea, so I automatically like this girl. The price tag is a bit steep here, almost 30,000 yen. It's kind of harder to justify that when the character's on the shorter side too, but she's got 3 little owl buddies, which certainly helps that, and I do love them. Her pose is a bit strange to me, as it's a bit of like a balancing act on an ornate box, but she looks so calm and collected. In fact, all the birds are freaking out, but not her. The kimono parts on the outfit looks pretty cool, the red and blue flames on the sleeves and the ribbon. She's got feathers on her shoulders too, which is very fitting. It sort of looks like she's wearing an apron though, which might be the case as she has one of those like rice scoopers in her hand. She's probably a chef or something along those lines, I'm not really sure. It's a strange figure, I do enjoy it, but I just wish she was like a little bit more expressive. Ariel from Union Creative. Frankly, I just put this in the video to point out how much better the Amakuni version looks in comparison. The cape is less impactful here, the collar is less fluffy, the outfit no longer looks like latex, the body's not as well defined. I don't even think she has the eyeliner that I like so much on the other figure. As far as I can tell, I don't think that's there. You do save like 6,000 yen going for this figure instead of the Amakuni one, but I just think the other one is so much nicer that it wouldn't be worth it. I'm kind of surprised that they actually show you what it looks like underneath her skirt on this figure. Normally, like, convenient photography hides that kind of stuff, but considering that's kind of the selling point of this figure, and it's Amakuni, I guess it makes sense. I mean, she do be really flexible, and the design of her tights are so nice. They know you're gonna be staring there, so like, why not make them extra pretty? 26,000 yen is a lot, but at the same time, you are getting a rifle and like a little robot buddy who carries around her shoes. He might be my favorite part of this figure. He's got like a slight curiosity to him thanks to the head tilt, but he's just trying to help her out either way, and I appreciate him. Oh yeah, and her face is great, so overall, I'm giving it the thumbs up. Bunny Girl Lume is an interesting one because you're essentially getting two figures in one with her clothes and one without. Now, I'm sure some people really don't care about owning both, but at the very least, it makes the price tag much more reasonable. I can't really show the pictures, but you're still getting the thigh highs and the heels on both bodies, so it's really just the suit that's gone on the other body, and she certainly has a nice body. Two more things of note, the stole, which is like the article around her shoulders, is a separate piece of fur, so you might have to bend that yourself, I'm not exactly sure. And two, I personally think the wall scroll that you get with this figure looks so much better. Like, I do like the figure, but this art style and the expression on her face on this wall scroll is really what the figure should have looked like, and as a result, because they're including this, I kind of like the figure a little bit less now, but it's not that it's bad, of course. I just wish they tried a little bit harder to capture the art style and the expression on this wall scroll. Minamoto no Raikau Travel Portrait version. While this definitely doesn't have the Raita art style anymore, I can't say I dislike this overall. She's got legs for days, and her hair sculpt is massive and rather impressive looking. But now that I'm looking at it, I don't know, hear me out. Does it not look a little phallic? Or has my brain just rotted away completely? I mean, the sculpt is technically phenomenal and the paintwork is top notch, but there's just something about it that I'm just kind of thrown off by, and I think I should stop talking about it, so let's move on to the next figure. Noelle from Hololive got a swimsuit figure, and surprisingly, it cost under 20,000 yen and isn't a limited figure, so you can get this for even cheaper than that. And that's kinda nuts because this looks pretty perfect to me as far as swimsuit figures go. Like, I don't need this figure, but I'm really compelled to buy it just because of the price tag and the fact that it looks great, but like, it feels like I'm missing out if I don't jump on this really good deal. Excellent body sculpt, obviously. The swimsuit is really cute. The inflatable ring has a bit of like realism to it. I think that looks really nice. And I like the simplicity of the water splash. It just fits the figure's art style more than the Gura's figure water did. Noelle being one of the more curvaceous Hololive characters certainly helps this figure's appeal to me even more, but regardless, the vivid colors and the fun vibes this figure just exudes makes this a really easy recommendation. Oshino Shinobu made by Miyuki, so overall I think like all of their other Watanabe style figures, the art style is nailed perfectly. And that's what I'm usually looking for first in Shinobu figures, so they got the important part down. It's been a while since I've gotten a figure of her, and while a made figure isn't exactly what I wanted or had in mind, the whole gothic Lolita design definitely fits her well. The fact that she also has her massive sword on this figure and the pathing of the chain just gives her a more dynamic and standout look, which I also really dig. Why this figure has to be a bit of like a wardrobe malfunction figure, I don't really know, but the company kind of likes to do this with their characters, so I'll just chalk it up to that. Oh, and I might as well point out that her like condescending expression is pretty perfect as well, so most of this figure is really good, but it's so expensive at like nearly 28,000 yen. And I don't know, I don't really feel like this needed the extra element of like lewd tacked on, but that's just me. Her base also kind of sucks, which is minor, but like, why did they have to print her name on it like that? That is insanely cheap looking to the point where you might as well just cover it up if you get this figure. I don't really mind that it's small though, but that is an interesting choice too, considering how like big the sword is and how wide this figure is overall. But I guess it saves shelf space, so overall, a pretty good decision. Makoto is a wet fox girl from Princess Connect Redive. The embarrassed face is pretty on point. I am loving all the straps and belts around her legs, and her tail looks pretty good, but I don't know if I love the execution of the wet t-shirt though. I think it's technically like correct because it's all like clumped up and whatnot, but it's always gonna remain that way, and it kind of just like hides the bikini a little bit. It's pretty hard to see through, and it's just kind of like wrinkly, and I'm not the biggest fan of that. Like, I get it. It's just not really for me again, but I think the elf from earlier did it way better. Asuna Ichinose, so this is Good Smile Art Shanghai taking a crack at this character. At 22,000 yen, I can't say there's too much to complain about, and while I do think Max Factory's version had like higher highs, this one at the very least I kind of like all around. Like, I just don't really have issues with it like I did with the Max Factory version. The poker table just fits her so well, not to mention all those gold chips or coins along with the playing cards. I do wonder if the one card is actually molded in between her chest, or if you could remove it. These are the questions that need answers. I guess I just find it weird because I think this figure is less impressive as a sculpt, but I really didn't like the furry base on Max Factory's version, so this one playing it safe kinda makes me like it more, I guess. I don't know, it's a bit of a toss-up because the face and the hair on the Max Factory version is way better, so I don't know, at least you get options at the very least. 2 My Hero Academia figures from S-Fire came out this month. Toga was the first, and I hate to say it, but Spirit Tail's version of her just makes it really hard to get excited for this one. At 24,000 yen, it's only slightly cheaper than the other one, and yet there's so many less plushies on this base. I will say I've started to like her face more on this figure with passing time, but it's not enough when I also really like the face on Spirit Tail's figure, so like, I don't know what's the selling point of this figure anymore, considering that like Spirit Tail just stole the show. This figure, on the other hand, is actually pretty nutty. Deku vs. Muscular. I believe this is a non-scale. It's pretty big regardless, but I don't think it's like a 1/8 scale or a 1/7 scale. I'm just not exactly sure on that, but it's impressive nonetheless because of just like, obviously all the muscles that are coming out of Muscular, and it just looks pretty awesome, honestly. Now this one's gonna set you back 65,780 yen, so it's really not a cheap figure, and your best bet if you want this guy is to get it through the Good Smile Company global site because of the flat shipping rate. This is surely going to cost a shit ton of money to ship, but if you're a big fan of this series, maybe this is something you really want. I don't really see a lot of people talk about Muscular. I feel like this is a pretty cool just like moment from the show for sure, and I think they've done a great job encapsulating that moment, but this is a very specific type of figure, and I bet they're not really even expecting this to sell super well because of the size and the price and whatnot. But even if I don't buy them, I just like seeing the spectacle. I just like seeing companies kind of spread their wings a little bit. It's pretty damn impressive. It's pretty damn cool. Hane-Ame Dog Pet Girlfriend is another cosplay figure, except this time, rather than going for realism, the figure is trying to do like an anime interpretation of the cosplayer, which I personally find more appealing. I think this figure is still interesting though because it still feels less like an anime character and more like an actual person, but the line is blurred in a more seamless way. Now the question is, do I want a sexy dog lady in lingerie on my shelves? Not necessarily, but I can't deny her outfit looks fantastic, and her hair sculpt is top-notch. The fishnets are also a highlight. I just like how they partially look like brown tights, and the belts around the legs are a fun detail too. Also, I like how it looks like she actually signed the base. It's so much better than just printing her name on it, like the Shinobu figure. So, yeah, pretty good overall. Just not really for me, I guess. I genuinely do not understand how this costs less than both of the other Star Guardian figures from League of Legends. But Ari here comes in at just under 30,000 yen, and while that's certainly a lot, the sheer amount of plastic used on her tails just like completely justifies that price tag. The two tails up top sort of make a heart shape, which is pretty cute, and the ones on the bottom just spiraling around her legs makes her a pretty visually interesting look, and I like it a lot. The fur not being like hyper detailed is also preferred here. Like, I enjoy the moderate amount of fur texturing, but any more of this would have probably been distracting. Her Sailor Moon inspired outfit also just looks super clean. The shades of paint chosen here are all excellent, and definitely pops against the soft oranges and reds used for the tails. This figure is also fairly big at like 37 centimeters, so there's no way it doesn't steal you or your guests' attention when they see it. It's a really good figure. Even more impressive from the company though was the Ryotanyi Chant of Life version. This has huge potential to be truly breathtaking in person, because this is pretty ambitious. There's always a bit of risk in floating figures like this, but considering she's going to be plugged into the tree directly, she should be fine. As pretty as her hair looks floating above her like this, there's definitely a bit of concern that it's gonna droop over time. I think that's where I draw the biggest concern with this figure. I'm just not exactly sure on its longevity, but everything else should be pretty solid on this figure if it's constructed correctly. Stuff like the paper lantern on the tree or the goldfish should be fine, but yeah, there's just like an ethereal vibe on this figure along with the colors that just kind of hits different. They've really captured a level of delicacy on this figure that you don't often see, and I'm not talking about how easy it's going to be to break these pieces. Also, there's like a really cute fella on this figure that I want to just go to his image. I love this guy, he's so cute. But yeah, this is going to cost 35,000 yen, and if they pull it off, completely justified, and this might be one of the best figures of the year. 2024. This is not coming out till 2024. So that year, it might be one of the best, but we'll wait and see. We're not sure yet. Pandora wedding dress version. I was always interested to see how this one turned out simply because of the black wedding dress, but this figure looks weird. It's really just her face though. The dress is fine. The flowers kind of look like they're dying, but I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be the point. But if I go down to like close-ups of her face, I can't help but feel like there's a bit of derpiness due to her eyes and bangs, and especially when the veil is on. I think the only way this would work better is if her hair was thinner or something, but right now I'm just really not a fan of this figure, especially for 28,600 yen. Katakawa also put out these two figures of Sally and Maple in their swimsuits, and can you believe that these cost more than the wedding figure at like 29,000 yen? Sorry, 29,700 yen. These are so simplistic. I really feel like this license for I don't want to get hurt, so I'll max out my defense, is just ridiculously expensive. I know Katakawa makes expensive figures, but every single figure I've seen of these characters from this series are just so expensive by default, and I just don't see it, especially in these swimsuit figures. They are so simplistic, and simplistic's fine, but not for 30,000 yen. There's nothing to talk about with these figures. They're average. Average is fine, but they should cost like half as much money as a result. Like, I don't care how you spin it. This is actually kind of crazy. Another pair of figures, this time from Good Smile Arts Shanghai, Chen and Neon Spring Festival versions. I think Lunar New Year outfits makes for good looks on these two, but this wouldn't be my first pick for a Chen figure if I had to choose. I do like the sculpt of the sash that's like nearly floating around her with those big tassels at the end. Actually, thinking about it, Neon's sculpt isn't nearly as interesting to me, but I love how her coat looks on top of the partial Chinese dress that she's wearing. It's 23,000 yen for either of these two girls, which I think is pretty fair. I don't know why I can't find this one on AmiAmi at all, but here is Kanata Amane from Hololive, another figure I really like. I don't have the yen price in front of me, but I'm guessing she's pretty expensive. I talked about her a lot in my previous video, but outside of the two rods that are supporting her up, I think this one's lovely. The gold and light blues on this figure just instantly win me over, and I really adore not only the wings, but the feathers that have like gently fallen down off of her and onto the base. It's a really cute one, and if you're a fan of her, I feel like this is a must-get. Ryza High Summer Formal version, which means we had two Ryzas to talk about in this video, my bad. This one's actually fairly cheap at 19,800 yen. I think she's a standard release too, but this might be the first Ryza figure that I'm actually not really on board with. She certainly has the thickness required, and the crease by her thigh right here, I don't know if there's a better picture of it, but this looks really good. I like this a lot. But besides that, it just feels like a mismatch for her personality, like the outfit in general. I just don't really like the colors or the design of it on Ryza. And I know this is in the game. I think this is like a celebratory outfit of some sort, but that doesn't really mean anything to me because I still wouldn't like it in the game either. There's also something about her face that feels a little bit off. Might be the teeth, might be the size of her mouth, but either way, I just don't love it when I'm normally so down to just like accept anything that Tori Domino makes and creates. So that's weird. I just don't really know why this one isn't gelling with me, but at least her hair looks nice. At least the flowers in her hair looks nice, so it's not that bad. And I think this might be our last one for the video, so here is A to Z's E. We're back to Mythos, so this one is actually affordable, unlike last time with Lumina's F01, I think was her name. This one costs 19,800 yen and feels like a pretty good return to form for the line. We got a massive futuristic axe on full display, as it should be, and her outfit's pretty good. She's got a cool jacket, but like dainty, cutesy shoes. I like it. Her face also looks pretty good, which I think is usually the case for these girls with a few exceptions, but the violet eyes and hair are pretty, so yeah, I think this one's shaping up pretty nicely. But with that, I think we're done with the pre-order roundup, so thanks so much for watching, I really appreciate it. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. I've been thinking about making these videos maybe bi-weekly or something. I'm not really sure if I want to commit to that, though I'd like to hear your opinion on if that would be better or worse for you. Certainly, I'm a little late on these videos, but mostly that's because they're just so long. So when I sit down to work on them, it just takes me a bit longer to get everything in one video and trying to not sound too monotonous and repeating myself over and over. So yeah, there's a bit of complications in doing this like once a month, making it an hour long and whatnot. But I don't know. Either way, appreciate you guys. Let me know anything you want to say down below in the comments. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you want to support the channel. Use my affiliate link if you want to shop around for some stuff for yourself or a friend. Be a good friend to your friends. And yeah, I guess I'll see you around for the next video. See ya.